My new morning routine, live to 120 plus. So I'm reacting to Bryan Johnson today. This is a slightly weird vibe already. He's actually seemingly asleep, which is interesting. I guess he left his door unlocked or something.
You want me to give you a few more minutes?
I'm good, let's roll. Let's do this.
You want to?
Yeah.
This is as real as it gets.
As real as it gets. Is it 7?
It's 7:08.
I was in the middle of a dream.
No.
What was happening? Something adventurous was going on. Like, I don't know.
I will say, while I'm probably going to rip on him a lot for his, health practices, he does seem like quite a sweet guy.
I have underwear on, yes.
Let's just do it for real.
There is a lot of good research that, it is healthy to sleep naked for both males and females. It's debatable if men should actually even wear underwear nowadays, because we do know that the testes hang outside the body because they're meant to be kept much cooler than, the internal body temperature. And there's research related to people that wear boxers versus tighty whities that boxers allow improved sperm parameters. They didn't actually study people that don't wear boxers or don't wear underwear at all. Logically, it would make sense that that would also further enhance sperm parameters and fertility parameters. It's true, it wasn't weird. I don't know how many other people did it, but I've always been into the, that sort of realm of...
So the first thing I'll do is flip this on. I slipped in a little later than normal because of this jet lag. So the sun is kind of coming out, so I can go outside and get some sunlight. I'll just do this as part of my routine.
That is interesting because he's faced with the choice between this artificial source of light that is, some very expensive UV full spectrum lamp. I'm not exactly sure what it is, he hasn't said. The thing that we evolved to have and train our circadian rhythm, which is vastly more healthy to have chosen. If he had chosen sunlight, it would be a much healthier option. That is obviously what we as life forms have evolved to have and train our circadian rhythm. That's the thing that tells all the cells in your body, hey, perform your daytime functions. Very surprising that he is faced with that choice and chooses this weird artificial thing. That is also kind of indicative of the way he operates and thinks about health in general.
This is my basal temperature. So your body gets to its lowest temperature setting in the morning and the night, and then it fluctuates throughout the day. I've lowered my body temp by roughly 3 degrees.
That's actually not good. That's not a sign of health. That is somewhat concerning, to be honest. He's tried a lot of different experiments. Some of them he's reversed. One of them, notoriously, was a very prominent anti-aging drug, and he was taking the highest dose that we know of that anybody has ever taken, but it suppresses the immune system. He was having all sorts of negative effects happen, and so he eventually reversed it. There's some issues with his entire framework about how he approaches health. Discards what we would think of as traditional knowledge, and he seeks this weird distilled version of information. The best path is to bridge ancestral wisdom with modern science and to create something that is actually holistically healthy, rather than do things like, I'm going to take the highest dose ever of this drug that in mice has been shown to extend lifespan, but also is a immune suppressor. That's just clearly just not a good idea logically.
And then for my hair in the morning, I do a few serums. This is Roots. I mentioned this before. It's 1 ml on the scalp. It's based upon a genetic test I did. This is a stimulating serum we have that is actually coming out on Blueprint in the next couple weeks. And then this is a brand new one we have, 2DDR.
Admittedly, Bryan is a very successful businessman, but it is always very odd to me how everything is oriented towards a money grab.
This was shown in a recent study to be just as effective as minoxidil. It's a sugar. But the study was on a mouse, so sometimes these studies translate, sometimes they don't.
We'll see what other hair protocols he does, but there's one that he's perhaps missing, which is GHK-CU. GHK has a really strong hair growth boosting effect, also is excellent on the skin, very bizarrely has fascinating research related to it when it is introduced systemically, including switching on and off all sorts of genes that suggest it could be a really, really important way to prevent disease in the future once it's better studied.
So I apply a few of these serums. I'll take this silicone scrubber and then just go on the scalp and massage it in, and all of them, they have unique contributions, but you're trying to basically stimulate blood flow to the scalp.
In general, products that stimulate blood flow to the scalp is a much safer path for either hair loss prevention or hair regrowth than something like finasteride, which operates basically by stopping your body from converting testosterone to DHT, because in people who are very genetically sensitive to DHT, that is a signal to the body to lose hair. But overall, a lot of people have hair loss because they're actually not particularly healthy. And to reframe that, hair is produced by a hair follicle that is essentially a mini organ. And this mini organ is actually nourished, and how well it is nourished by your blood flow is really, really closely tied to how well your hair grows. So that is actually the way that minoxidil works, is that it dramatically improves blood flow to the hair follicle. And also GHK works in a similar way, and rosemary as well, rosemary oil. This is good science, and I'm glad that he's not doing finasteride. Not to be an alarmist, but there are some seriously scary side effects that people have. There's something called post-finasteride syndrome, where some men can never again get an erection. So that's pretty scary.
So what we've been doing is the most effective hair protocol we have done in the past 4 years. I did PRP for a while. That's when you draw the blood, you separate blood plasma, and you re-inject it into the scalp. That really hurts. It's very expensive, and it's a big pain in the ass. So I'm glad we're not doing that anymore. It doesn't work. So this is much better.
When is the last time that you've been woken up?
Oh, you know what? Last time I got woken up, when my kids were like 10 years old.
I mean, that is just absolutely wild to me, but I guess I'm not like, you know, an insanely rich business person. Like, how is that even possible that it's been so long since he's been woken up? It's been like, what, like, I don't know. I guess I don't really know what kid he's referring to, but if he's referring to Talmadge, it's like at least 8 years or something, right? That's totally crazy. Talmadge being his son that, like, you know, lives with him, into a lot of the things that he's into.
So once you pull up one leg, you can't put it down. So you got, so this ankle's a little weak. This guy, I just, fractured. So it's a little weak.
Yeah, unfortunately, Bryan's remarkable health protocol made it so he fractured his ankle one of the very few times he went out dancing. Perhaps that was because he's completely plant-based, you know? There's a lot of essential nutrients in animal products that are involved in bone health. There's a lot of evidence that taking it supplementally is not going to give you the same benefit as getting it in food. I would be very hard-pressed to imagine that that is not directly related, because he does a lot of other things that would, in theory, potentially stimulate, healthy bones. Like he does the near-infrared light and various other things. So like the fact that he fractured his ankle that easily really, really shows that there's, in my opinion, a dietary issue.
I've been experimenting with a humidifier to see if I would sleep better. Initially, I bought one and then I realized it was plastic. And so then I returned that, I got a second one. This has a stainless steel interior. It's probably not perfectly plastic free, but it's better than entirely plastic.
Now that's the kind of thing Bryan should put his money towards, is creating an entirely plastic free humidifier. And I'm surprised that that's not something that he has thought of. But the other reality here is that his products are pretty much all money grabs. They're not like really things that are gonna benefit humanity. Now something where it's like, being like, hey, I'm gonna create a bunch of these wellness products that we all want and love. I'm gonna make a plastic free or healthier version of them. Now that is an interesting premise.
Like this. Does the ear and the eyes, which is really nice. This is the erection device. So,
When did you use it last?
a few weeks ago. Yeah, I don't use it every day, just periodically. You probably are at home thinking, this is suspicious.
He has the erection device. One of Bryan's most nuanced forms of the thirst trap is that he very frequently posts about how he has the erections of an 18-year-old, which is something that I'm always like, what is the, sure, it is very much a health marker, but he is very intent that we all know this as the public.
So there's, occasionally there's some sound in my neighborhood. Not a lot, it's pretty quiet here, but I just put this on a very low volume and it just kind of evens it out so it avoids disruption at night from a noise perspective. And then I'll come over here, I'll check out my room air quality. You see it's perfect quality in my room.
That's actually sick. I have this exact same thing. I was like, is that the IQ Air thing? This thing is awesome. Ideally, the way it works is that you attach an air sensor outside that actually literally analyzes and tests your specific local air quality outside. So you don't have to, look at something that's 2 miles away next to a highway or whatever. And then you also, this actual device tests the inside air quality as well. That's sick. I love that. I have that as well.
This section of the house is out of control. It's the receiving. So this is my home. Also, it doubles as blueprint office. So this is where all stuff comes in, new stuff. And you can see it's just like a wreck because we just got home from Asia. And so all these things have piled up. This is kind of cool. I'll show you this. So this is a mock-up. We're trying to make blueprint really easy. So your daily health protocol. Kate did this, but she just mocked this up. She's so creative. It's simple, just one drink. And here's what it has. the different things, and here's all the benefits we've seen in the studies.
Bryan has, various powders and drinks that he consumes a lot that have really like loose evidence around them for actually being beneficial. And one of the primary issues with his conception of health and also the way that he markets it to other people, he really is not the most rigorous about determining if this is actually beneficial in humans. Another component that's very important is that he combines everything. Quite literally impossible, and a lot of scientists have criticized him for this, but he blends so many different things that one, we don't know the interactions between them, and two, we also could never identify what was potentially helping him or extending his lifespan or making him more healthy, if that's what it was doing.
Yeah, every calorie fights for its life, and then you have 14 days.
14 days for the cheap price of $2,500.
We got new Blueprint protein came out. I think it's the best protein in the whole world. We tried them all in preparation for this. These are the new zippers. We had zippers before that wouldn't seal it very nicely.
The best protein, which is guaranteed because he's plant-based, to be a plant-based protein. So that's all the proteins that he's trying. Basically, the plant-based proteins are less bioavailable than animal-based proteins. So like the fact that he's saying it's the best protein in the world, it's like, dude, like eat some eggs, drink milk or cheese, like eat some beef, like.
We've moved so fast, and in doing that, we had these incredibly high standards of low heavy metals, high quality suppliers, every ingredient with precision identified. So we've moved very fast and got a ton done.
I'm surprised, given that he's so science-based, that he does not have the product that has the best research behind it. So that's quite interesting. There's something called the Theradome, very specific wavelength, visible red light. Red light LED devices, these are super effective for anti-aging, so I'm not trying to knock that, but it's kind of surprising that he doesn't have the product that has the most research behind it. So I'm curious why.
Consume Blueprint. It is so delicious, and I'm thirsty from the night. So this is about 20 ounces thereabouts. I'm gonna do a scoop of longevity mix.
At this point in the video, as he mentions longevity mix, the product pops up, driving you to click and give him some money because he needs more money.
I love the taste. It's so fresh, and I get so excited to have it every day.
Poor Bryan has like the most masochistic diet. I watched the Netflix documentary recently, and he's like, okay, it's 11:30 a.m. It's my last meal of the day. I mean, obviously, caloric restriction and compressing the eating window, there is good science behind it. But also, I'm like, dude, like you didn't actually ingest any real foods. You ingested a bunch of like products and synthesized things in order to like keep yourself alive because you are, for some reason, unwilling to eat like eggs and like grass-fed meat. I don't understand it at all.
Yeah, we're down in pills because when we started Blueprint, we needed to do two things. We needed to test that each supplement had what it said it has. So if you're taking something like vitamin D and the label says it's 2000 IU, the question is, does that supplement have 2000 IU, or is it 1000 or 500 or none? Or 4,000. And so we were testing everything. We found out the reliability is very, very bad.
Yes, that is a completely valid point and is actually an issue across the supplement industry. Recently there was some third-party analysis of creatine gummies, and quite literally there was maybe 2 or 3 brands that actually had what they said they had. He's like kind of a sweet little guy, so I kind of like him as a person. I wish we could have a legitimate debate, but obviously there's some belief systems here going on. For example, he's very indoctrinated by certain forms of science and clearly disregards, you could think of as ancestral knowledge, but he also disregards science that goes against what is sort of like the mainstream prevailing view. A good example of this in action is why a dermatologist will tell you, just wear sunscreen. It doesn't matter if it's chemical sunscreen or if it's, what they say about non-nano zinc sunscreen, etc. Just protect yourself from the sun. In reality though, the chemical sunscreen is like very, very bad for you. And there, it quite literally in normal uses gets in your bloodstream and can end up in your brain. And we've seen this in cadaver. And so there's an interesting thing where it's the mainstream science says, hey, sun creates UV-based DNA damage, which then creates skin cancer, which then can lead to melanoma, death, etc. There's a lot more complexity within the actual data. It's kind of an interesting thing because one of the issues with modern science is that belief systems begin to rise rise up when science has been established for a long time. And so overturning it becomes very difficult. You can think of it almost like when there's new things that are actually accurate and the old scientists don't want to, or rather, when there's new ideas that are accurate being put forward, people that are on the sort of like conventional side of things criticize them, make them seem like idiots, whatever. And this is something we've seen in history too. Bryan is unfortunately on this conventional side of science in general. That's one of the reasons why he's like, hey, I'm gonna use this special little light instead of going outside and getting the sun in the morning.
I still have this. Before I was eating Truvani protein. This was our source of pea. They did a good job on taste, and they have a nice ingredient profile. And we found this has high levels of heavy metals, unpleasantly high. But we only found that out because we were testing everything. Everything that came to the front door, we'd sent to the lab. We spent over $50,000 last month alone.
That is actually awesome and very important knowledge. You know, that is obviously not the kind of thing a person that is normal could do. He literally spent $50,000 testing things that he bought last month. That is one of the very few things that he has done that seems to actually have a widespread benefit for people. The reality though is, it seems like his protein product is likely pea protein because he said that's where we were getting the pea protein from. Obviously, you know, pea protein is far, far less effective than something that's like an egg white based protein or a whey-based protein, or even something like, you know, the steak shake protein, which is quite literally a wide variety of organs and tastes delicious and it's like, you know, chocolatey and good. I personally love that one.
I think it's the best health stack. So Blueprint is very nutritionally dense with over 1,000 clinical trials. I'm not trying to sell you on anything. I'm just trying to tell you like the process.
That's absolutely hilarious. He's like literally giving us a sales pitch as they have the products pop up. I'm not trying to sell you anything.
Your early to mid 20s, you can start losing your hair. And even if you don't see it, it's always best to begin paying attention to hair care earlier rather than later. Don't wait until you're losing hair or you find that you've lost hair. This is true for females as well.
And even if you are not losing hair, all of these things are signals of health, whether it's your skin health, you know, rate of visible aging of your skin. Even if you have absolutely no issue, do things that sort of bolster and support your hair health. But it is, for example, to eat like a nutrient-dense diet that feeds your body the components that you need in order to create hair, in order to, you know, have like healthy skin. If you are young and you look much older, it is in fact a signal from the inside out that there's something going wrong. Now, if you do have that, there's a lot of measures that you can take to restore your health. So it's just good to be aware of that though.
We recently discovered also, you saw in my room, we have the air purifier, or no, I'm sorry, the humidifier. One time I filled the humidifier with tap water, this LA tap water, and I saw that my air quality spiked into dangerous territory.
That is actually pretty interesting, but there's also probably some complications because I personally have this thing that he has, and particulate count of even like a humidifier in general, just producing extra water molecules in the air, is the kind of thing that can alter the data a little bit, like especially if it's like pumping out and who knows what else it's off-gassing, for example. I would support the overall message here, which is in general, tap water from particularly, you know, large municipal centers like LA, Houston, whatever, they do often have issues. You know, that's why you'll often see like the side of a bus that has like essentially an ad from the state that's about how lead in water can, you know, impair child development and is like really dangerous for little kids. The reason for that is that we built a lot of our city like water systems with lead pipes. And so you have all this tap water currently still loaded with like fluoride and then also a wide variety of other things that you don't want. And it's going through these lead pipes and then basically you're drinking it on the other side, which is why, you know, you often will go to a new place and be like, wow, the water tastes so bad here, or the water tastes so good, depending on what you're used to.
Which when it was through the humidifier, got to dangerous levels of air toxins versus when I use my purified water, it's clean. So I want to do a test and figure out like, what is it that's setting off the air quality alarm as being toxic? I don't know, but it's scary.
That is interesting. I'm curious, like, there could be any number of factors though. That's quite interesting. I assume that the filtered water that he has is probably pared down of many, many different things, including, I'm curious if he remineralizes it. As mentioned, drinking sort of like electrolytes and minerals in addition. So I assume that the filtration system that he has strips it of everything, which in general is the way a powerful water filter will work. And so it is a good idea to remineralize it. That is also why I talked about spring water, because in general, water that comes clean and fresh from the earth is already mineralized mineralized in a healthy way. Some of which is actually mineralized in such a way that it has, you know, bizarre and remarkable health benefits, which is underlying these things where it's like, hey, this is like a healing spring or whatever. There's certain components of, you know, compounds that are dissolved within the water that can actually exert health benefits.
And same thing here, just like longevity mix, it's clean, it's tested, so it just gives me a lot of confidence. So 2 scoops of nutty pudding, and then I'll add 2.5 grams of creatine. Blueprint creatine is coming out in a couple weeks. So that's 5 grams because 2.5 grams of creatine is in longevity mix and 2.5 here. And then these are collagen peptides. This is the only thing I do which is non-vegan.
I'm very glad that he's consuming some collagen, but I'm also curious as to that distinction. Like why, if you're already eating an animal product, you know, they obviously aren't harvesting the collagen from like, you know, a happy living cow. Why not just eat nutrient-dense foods too then and be healthier? Probably because he's a little bit indoctrinated by the nutritional science industry that says, hey, meat is actually the cause of heart disease. You cannot consume dietary cholesterol. Don't look at any of this other science that says the exact opposite.
What we're trying to do is every calorie you eat, we're trying to accommodate. Every pill, every calorie, and so you can have confidence that it's the highest nutritional level and it's the cleanest. Like if I was a customer of Blueprint, I would be so grateful to just know.
This whole thing is like a very sneaky ad. I can't believe you just said that. If I was a customer of Blueprint, I would be just so happy. Chill. Let's get to your morning routine and stop trying to sell me on stuff.
Again, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just showing you what I do. I consume everything we sell. And I do so because it's the cleanest thing out there. So I don't want this to come across as a sales pitch. It's not. And then I've been using this almond,
Bro, this guy is like so like anti-gains, like busts out this little plant-based milk, like come on.
People will say like, I go to the farmer's market and therefore my food is clean. But you know, the water that they use for irrigation comes from somewhere and it has a lot of microplastics. So it's just like, they're omnipresent in our society.
That's true. In fact, microplastics have been found in virtually every organ system in the body. It's like actually pretty alarming, but they are just ubiquitous. It is effectively, in the modern world, as sad as it is, impossible to not ingest microplastics. And I've seen some funny things where like, you know, health influencers are like, one of the best ways to get rid of microplastics is to donate your blood because it's, you know, in your bloodstream. It's like, I guess, but that's like kind of like a villainous thing where you're like, take my microplastic laden blood. If that's like the way you're thinking about it. Like
I just took this is our new plastics test. I did this yesterday. So we have one of the world's first microplastic tests to see what the concentration is in your body.
That's actually kind of cool. This is the first product where I'm like, all right, I mean, that's a little bit interesting actually. Certainly a worthwhile thing for people to know, although as we've said, you can't really avoid them. So it's kind of like you are also, like every other human being alive right now, have microplastics in your system because, you know, that not only is it in the water and the irrigation, but it literally is in rainwater now. It's impossible to avoid them.
For like a blood test, you would use a device like this. And so you just take this thing off and you put pressure on the finger and it pops it. But this is plastic. So that would confound the test because now you got plastics from this guy. So with this test, we have this. As you can see, it's just metal. Then it has that sharp tip. And so it's a little challenging because you have to like prick your finger with this. But it works, and then you just fill out, you put the blood.
This is actually kind of cool. I like that he also innovated it to not have plastic. That is, obviously it would confound it, but I would love if Bryan put some of his money behind, in general, trying to sort of reduce plastic exposure. For example, that was something I suggested with the humidifier, but also if he's into plant-based milks.
Yeah, you guys, this is legit what it would be like if you stayed at my house and we were friends. We are friends, but this week I've got raspberries and strawberries.
This is so sick. Like, he is so bankrolled. I love it. Like, oh, this gigantic thing of fresh berries that like someone cut up for him. I'm like, wow, man. He's got a lot of things where I'm just like, that is like really goals. Like, I would love to have that.
I'll do like a quarter to half a cup. Talmadge loves berries so much. Okay. And this is same thing as the longevity mix. It's one of my favorite things. And we'll put super veggie out to begin warming up a little bit. So when we're finished working out, But that would be breakfast.
I mean, it's also kind of like just insane to me because he's got all these things that are like pre-prepared. I'm just like imagining the people preparing everything for him, like for every meal of the day. I mean, I guess he lives like a king, literally, essentially. He certainly is not spending his time cooking and doing the dishes after a meal prep and doing things like a normal human being has to do.
But that would be breakfast. That's just broccoli, cauliflower, mushrooms, lentils, hemp seeds, garlic, and ginger. Now breakfast is...
That sounds delicious. And why can't he just put like, you know, a bunch of chicken on top of it so it's like actually like healthy, or like some ground beef or like eggs or whatever.
And we have very similar behavioral practices to the animals. I finished the book once and now I'm listening to it twice. It's so information packed and I wanted to increase my retention of the information. All right, now I'll eat this and then we will work out.
That's an interesting thing because ideally, if you are really cognitively healthy and very interested in a topic, which if you're listening to an audiobook and spending existence, you know, doing something like that, ideally you're interested in it, you should be retaining the vast majority of it. If you're not, there's probably some things going on. You know, for example, are you cognitively optimized? It could be any number of things from mitochondrial dysfunction in neurons, that's basically creating what we would call brain fog. Or it could be that you don't have enough dietary cholesterol. And so the cell membranes in your brain are not as healthy as they should be. Hormones are these very fundamental signalers in our body, and they actually play a really remarkable role in cognitive function.
The team is here this morning. I want to make sure that their needs are taken care of. So I asked them if they had longevity mix this morning, and they were like, I'm not going to say because I'm being bashful. And I was like, you need to tell me.
There's a lot of layers to this. It's like, they're like, dude, like we can't drink any more of this absolutely terrible powder. But they're like, you're also our boss and this is the company that we're involved in. So I guess we'll drink it, force it down.
They're like, we haven't had it. I'm like, you should have it. And they're like, okay, I'll have it. So now they're gonna have it. So let's get them taken care of. You know, like when your friends show up, you take care of them. And what better way to show that you care and giving them 26 critical micronutrients.
Not to harp on the same thing over and over again, but egg yolk has virtually all of the nutrients we need, quite literally. So I'm like, dude, like this is so funny to, one, have a product that is engineered to basically replace the foods that we evolved to eat, and then two, have such a weird cognitive dissonance that you don't like realize that. That's not like a part of his messaging here. It's like, ideally you are just getting this from your diet because you're eating like we've always eaten in the, you know, pre-modern world where we didn't have all these like modern related health issues, such as extremely high rates of obesity and cardiovascular disease. That's just a huge gap in his understanding of health, unfortunately.
From the world's best suppliers. All right, you guys. So I'll just give you guys each one cup, and you don't know which one? Okay. Okay. Who's gonna get which one? Who's going to choose? Oh, that was, yeah. Always do the dishes right after you eat, because then otherwise they dry and they become...
Okay, maybe he does clean up after himself. Also, this could be for the camera. I would be honestly pretty surprised if he does, if he's actually doing that. Perhaps I was maligning him.
Become like 4x the amount of work. But you can see my morning routine is actually dramatically simplified from where it was before. I've maybe done 10 things, weighed myself, inner ear temperature, light, hair serums, hair cap, longevity mix, night pudding. Very clean morning, it's like very easy. So again, a lot of people think that what I do is very complicated and very expensive. It's not, it's actually very affordable. So the moment I get out of bed, it's the same.
I mean, it's funny because all the technology he's using is of course fairly expensive. I mean, I don't know, the whole inner ear temperature thing where he's also like having a clear decline of health because his body temperature has dropped by 3 full degrees, which is not a signal of health. You know, like obviously the scale, you can get a relatively moderately priced scale that does that same thing. The scales that are extremely accurate are not super cheap. The light box is also not cheap, and nor is the laser cap. Yeah, if you own all these things, then it is not like expensive to do it, but buying them all is certainly obviously very expensive and not in the realm of the thing that a normal person can do.
Sequence of steps every day, and you probably do the same in your life as well. Just map out those steps, structure it in a way it just happens every day and you don't think about it. And then now I'm going to work out, where it's not a question if I'm going to work out, I just do it every single day. Okay, let's go to the gym.
That is 100% true. One of the most important ways to get healthy or to stay healthy if you're already healthy is to make movement a non-negotiable. Interestingly, if you think about it as exercise and that is something that you like don't want to do, try to like switch your thinking. Can you make it something where there's a play element to it? Like, maybe instead of, if you hate, doing cardio at the gym, maybe try to play a sport with your friends, beach volleyball or whatever, any sort of thing that gets your body moving.
And exercise.
I'm a huge fan of Bryan's exercise routine. He's clearly, been indoctrinated by something that is science-based here, which is knees over toes guys' perspective on movement. So there's a lot of movement patterns that we just don't get when we're going to a gym and using modern machines. Obviously, doing that is better than not moving or not exercising at all. It is really important if you want to sort of live life to the fullest to do these different things that he's doing here. This, split squat that he's doing, it's called a knees over toes split squat. That is something that's excellent for the hip flexors, great for the knee tissue, really important actually. He's got all the little gadgets and stuff that one has when they're deep in this system. I am fully advocating for Bryan's workout routine actually. It's kind of awesome. He is 100% certainly in the very top percentage of fitness for his age group. The fact that he can do that on the Nordic curl, it wasn't a complete full flat down Nordic curl, but it's a partial Nordic curl. That is probably 0.1% of men his age can do that, I would imagine. It's something that actually does take quite a lot of time to build that tissue resilience and be able to do that, even if you're very strong. It's a very unique movement pattern that is extremely healthy and important for knee health.
All right, it's a wrap. Let's go.
It is funny, that was sick. I love that he was doing that whole thing. He steps out into the light of day for the first time.
Okay, that was great. Every day, my favorite part. So let's do a few things. I've been doing this cerebral lysin. I blogged about this.
Interesting. The fact that he is vegan and he is using cerebrolysin, literally baffling. Cerebrolysin is synthesized from the brain of a baby pig. It's a compound that has really remarkable neurogenesis boosting effect and also some kind of interesting and strange anecdotal reports. Anecdotal reports that are related to significant anxiety relief, also, improved ability to learn. Russia and various other countries, they actually do use it in medicine. It is something that you can be prescribed and given. I'm curious to see why he is using it though.
So this is a peptide. It's also a therapy that we don't really know much about. So it's interesting. It has emerging evidence for treating things like cognitive decline and traumatic brain injury, but there's not good data on what a proper dosing protocol is. So we're kind of winging it. And there's also emergent evidence, we're using it for longevity purposes, and it's not clear. So I just want to call out sometimes,
as he's mentioning, there's not really any indication, except for perhaps the cognitive decline element, that cerebrolysin would improve longevity. That said, could in indirect ways, if for example you're suffering very seriously from anxiety and the neurogenesis boost actually dramatically relieves your anxiety, obviously mental state and the immune system and the hormonal system, the level of neurotransmitters in your brain all have this sort of cyclical or rather intertwined relationship because each one can impact the other, which is this field of science called psychoneuroimmunoendocrinology. So why it's called that long mouthful of a word is each of these systems can impact the other system. And it's often mediated through the endocannabinoid system.
we do therapies and the evidence is very clear. We know what the effect is going to be. We know the dosage, we know how to measure it. This is not. So this really kind of falls into the experimental side. And in these circumstances, we try to assess, do we think it's safe? So even if there's no effect, can we safely do it? So we think it's safe. We don't think it's creating any excessive risk. So who knows if that's...
that is what the evidence would suggest. That said, there's a couple points to pick on. One of which is he does do things that have some animal models that improve longevity, but in humans have no indication that they are actually good for you. For example, this immune suppressing drug that he takes that a lot of people in the longevity space take, there are animal studies that significantly promote their lifespan. The other thing to point out is that he makes it sound like the protocol he has is very evidence-based, but it's really important to understand that because because he's combining so many different protocols, each of which can impact the body in ways that are slightly outside the scope of how they've been researched. For example, we have new science about a bunch of different things, like how different compounds can affect gene expression, for example. It's essentially impossible to tell how all of the different things Bryan is doing would affect each other and then affect himself. It's actually all an experiment and not actually even a very scientific. It's not something that you could ever get funded for. There's no question here of like that you could actually test. It's basically like he's throwing the kitchen sink into his body and seeing what happens. So it's really like a kind of a bizarre, interesting experiment to watch though, for sure.
Entirely true, but our best guess is that's the case. I just ordered new needles. This is a 27 gauge. And it's a little short.
That is the annoying thing about cerebral lysin, is that unlike a lot of peptides, you can't do a subcutaneous injection, which means essentially into your fat. You actually have to do an intramuscular injection. But a lot of the research related to it in a medical context is actually intravenous. So that's something that you would only do in a medical facility, essentially. But there is other research where people use cerebral lysin intramuscularly, and that is how I've done it as well.
I need about 30 millimeters because we're doing intramuscular, but I need a bit more length to make sure I get intramuscular. So let me grab the cerebral lysin. This volume is 5 mLs. All right, there we go, got everything. And then we'll do the upper right side of the buttocks. So we'll do right here. So with an alcohol swab, clean it up like right here.
Bryan has a thing where he doesn't use a lot of things that are technically drugs. Like he doesn't ingest caffeine, he doesn't consume alcohol, and he says this is because he doesn't want to change his state because he feels so good. Cerebral lysin has some interesting psychotropic effects. It's not gonna make you hallucinate. It does give you a very interesting, like healthful feeling where you just like feel really good and also very relaxed and like mellow. Kind of an interesting thing that I wonder if he's aware of, the fact that like perhaps he's experimenting with this because it has this kind of like drug-like effect on him.
So lid back on, and then to have this guy here to make sure that you don't just put it in the trash and then someone accidentally gets stuck with it. So make sure you always properly handle needles. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is red light therapy. I was doing previously 3 times a week, 12 minutes, so 36 minutes. And lately I've been doing 6 minutes a day, so 42 minutes a week, so within the same range. And it's easier to just have this fall into the routine, workout, go to red light therapy for 6 minutes, and then shower and be ready for the day. So let's jump upstairs. We'll do 6 minutes of red light therapy.
I love that he has such a large platform and he's actually promoting red light therapy. It is something red light therapy has a really significant anti-aging benefit as well as a significant health promoting benefit. One of the things I suspect he won't really talk about is that it also actually has a SPF-like effect on your skin. So if you do it in the morning, first thing, before you go outside, it has an SPF 15-like effect in that it reduces DNA damage as if you were wearing an SPF 15 sunscreen. So that's a really interesting thing, actually. And if you're a guy and you do it naked, it also dramatically increases your testosterone. And we've seen this in both animal and human studies.
Yeah, all right, so normally this is done naked, but since this is not...
I love that. All right, now Bryan's becoming a Chad in my eyes. I'm stoked. That's sick. That's the way you gotta do it. You gotta do the red light therapy naked. It is what it is. It doesn't go through clothes. So, if you wanna get that health benefit, you need to do it naked. Now I'm stoked on him.
My OnlyFans account, I'm going to keep my shorts on. By the way, should I start an OnlyFans account? Wouldn't that be kind of fun?
Bro is so funny. He is like the biggest, goofball thirst trapper. I love it. It's so funny.
It'd be a new thing. So I'm gonna keep my shorts on. So this is red and near. I'm gonna turn on, there's 4 total panels, and then the distance is about 8 inches. So with this density of lights, it's like, roughly 8-ish inches from both sides, and then it's covering whole body. So I'll put my eyewear on. Yeah, it's red light and near infrared. So let's do this. Okay. Now, since we're upstairs, and why don't you come with me, I'll show you some behind the scenes. So Scott has turned this room into a YouTube studio where we shoot all of our videos. So let me go show you. So when you see on camera next time, you can imagine what the set looks like. So come this way.
I like how he doesn't mention it, but he has like a unbelievably expensive machine in the background, which is like an M-Sculpt Neo, which is essentially a machine that uses radio frequency as well as a type of magnetic resonance that creates a supramaximal muscle contraction and also burns fat as well, or not burns fat, but basically creates a process that causes fat molecules to like release the component of that is in a larger fat molecule, and then you pee it out basically. But that thing is absolutely wild to have in your home. Like, this guy is just so bankrolled, it's crazy.
So just a few months ago, we just had a couch here. Oh, this is the outdoor grass area, which is the top of the living room. Yeah, Scott's done a great job with all the different lighting. I've learned so much about videography and lighting. You can have the same person in 2 different sets with different lighting, and it's like a different human. It matters so much. You meet somebody who's on Instagram, and they look nothing like real life. Like, they're just different humans. Lighting does that. We tried with all our stuff to shoot in a way that is aesthetically pleasing, but does not distort me. Like, this is me in the raw. Like, there's like, no makeup. I got woken up. So like, we're trying to be this transparent project of like what happens when you try to rejuvenate and be healthy. We had to try to like be out and about more. It's so challenging because my schedule is so packed. Like, I need to someday like explain the size of work that we have right now with Blueprint and Don't Die and my personal protocol and like everything else going on. I think it might be interesting to see, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they can't see themselves taking care of their health and being ambitious. And I'm trying to say you can, in fact, do it. You can be ambitious and take care of your health. It's hard to explain the size of work that we have right now with Blueprint and Don't Die and my personal protocol and like everything else going on. I think it might be interesting to see, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they can't see themselves taking care of their health and being ambitious. And I'm trying to say you can, in fact, do it. You can be ambitious and take care of your health. It's hard, like very hard.
There's a degree of truth, and also there's some more complication. Obviously, if you watch the Netflix documentary on Bryan, he was not very healthy when he was actually like building all the businesses that allowed him to get all this money. As he said, he often worked for days straight in a row because there was, ongoing problems that needed to be solved by him. So it is a little bit more complicated. It is, of course, very important to prioritize your health, because wealth is nothing if you're going to just die. You need to be optimizing your health. There's a phrase, health is wealth, and you really realize that when your health disappears. The one thing that you want to do is just be healthy again. So that's why all these billionaires are spending so much money on life extension and life optimization through getting healthier. So like, it is true that you can balance both. It's a lot easier to balance both when you have hundreds of millions of dollars like he does, because you've already built all these businesses and sold them.
Okay, now I'm gonna go downstairs and get my super veggie, and then I'm going to meditate for a few minutes and try to level set myself for the day. Let's go. Now it's super veggie. So I have a chef that comes over and makes this. So she comes to the house. I pay her $500 per cooking session. And in that cooking session,
I mean, he's saying that like that's a lot, but I'm like, bro, you are like filthy rich. Like, I'm not even sure that that's a great deal to like be transported there, cook for him for like 3 hours, like especially like a private chef. I'm like, that seems, I don't know, like he's not reimbursing her as well as he possibly could.
she does 4 days of food, and then they're all stored in these stainless steel containers. And so this one's super veggie, which has the broccoli, cauliflower, mushrooms, hemp seeds, garlic, and ginger. You can see the volume is it's enormous. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's like around 400 calories. But my diet has over 30 grams a day of fiber. So the average American, I think, gets somewhere around 10. So I'm about 3x what the American standard diet is. Like, that's a gigantic amount of food for breakfast, right? Like, you look at this and the size of my stomach, like, how does that fit? And then on top of that, once we get this warmed up, I'll add some fermented foods. I have 3 different fermented options. They're all in glass containers. We buy organic, where we need to buy things like broccoli and cauliflower. I looked into growing my own food, either here or locally, and it just turned out to be quite a project. And so I buy organic, and I know myself from testing foods that are organic that it does not guarantee that it's non-toxic. It's probably better than non-organic, but it's not like you buy organic and you're taken care of. The food system is just toxic no matter how you look at it. But the things we can get in bulk, like dry goods, for example, like lentils, we source that from our supplier. So we looked all over the world. It took us a year to find a lentils provider that met our heavy metal spec. I will put super veggie on.
Yeah, those fermented goods that he has, I also use those, and unfortunately it's fairly hard to find organic versions. If you go to a good health food store, they may have a local option that is organic, and that is worth getting. But I'm a little bit like weirded out by the fact that he's like, you know, I looked into growing my own food, but it's like a whole project. It's like, dude, like, why didn't you put money behind it? You could, for example, install a water purification system in a greenhouse, etc., and like have it be a fairly like clean, closed food system. And I would imagine, I mean, certainly if I were like in his position, that's probably something that I would do. So I'm surprised that that doesn't meet like his standard of something that he should actually do.
And then I'll warm this up at about 250 degrees Fahrenheit. And we'll put Blueprint on here. I'm trying to make it easy for someone else to make it a fraction of the cost. So we have these products coming out where lentils, for example, lentils are hard because you have to boil them for like 20 minutes. So it's like a whole thing. And we've figured out how to create just add water lentils. So you just get hot water, you put it in, you let it sit for a few minutes, and you're ready to eat. And this has passed all of our standards of low heavy metals and all the high nutrition elements. And so it's very clean, it's low cost, it's easy to do, you can travel with it, it's just great. Well, basically, in short, we've tried to build the perfect health protocol here in this house, and now I'm trying to bring it to you for your house that's just easy to do, low cost, easy, meets all the nutritional specs, and is clean, as verified by third-party lab reports. All right, now, warm up.
Usually when I make a video that's about health science, I don't actually talk about a single product because I'm not trying to have it be like a weird money grab thing. I'm trying to provide information. Vast majority of this video has been an ad, which is kind of a weird thing because he's also repeatedly said, I'm not trying to sell you anything except for all of the products that keep popping up on screen that you can click and buy. Literally 50% of what he says is him like hard selling his own products. So I'm like, this is a little bit odd, but you know.
And then now we get an exciting decision point because we now get to choose kimchi, Napa cabbage, or sauerkraut, beet sauerkraut, or herbal kraut. What would you choose? I'll just do random. These
are all excellent products, and you guys should actually incorporate them into your diet too. I have the beet one and also the mother like kimchi as well, and the herbal one is absolutely delicious. So these I approve of.
Told me to pick the very best one. Kimchi. I haven't done eating any mode since I was a kid. Oh, looks like I have one left over from yesterday. This is seaweed. So
that one is also bomb. I love the seaweed too. That's funny. I typically eat these with like, you know, some delicious grass-fed beef, maybe have like a roasted marrow bone on the side, toss the fermented veggies on top. Absolutely delicious. Actually much more nutritious than anything he's eaten today.